one of UNIT's favourite soldiers, ladies and gentlemen, John Levene.
Hello, nice to see you. Nice to see you. Thank you very much. Listen. A sitting ovation, ladies and gentlemen. What a wonderful day. First of all, I wanted to thank Paul, who's been interviewing the other people, and I personally prefer to not have an interviewer, so it's nothing to do with Paul. Personally, it's just that I like to stand up, because I've just bought the suit, you know what I mean. So, look, welcome to Liverpool, one of my favourite places, of course, the Beatles and everything. And I do respond best to questions, so if any of you do have questions, I've got lots to tell you. I'll tell you, the first thing I made a mistake is, I made a very bad business decision in Hollywood last year. I went into business with a dyslexic pimp. We ended up with a chain of warehouses. Absolutely. It's terrible. No. So, any questions, ladies and gentlemen, as I am not in your country very often? Yes, sir. Oh, yes, young man. What is my favourite Doctor Who monster? I tell you, the Ogron. John Pertwee loved the Ogron because he said it was half monster and half human. Rather like my mother-in-law, really. No, I'll be honest, she is a dreadful woman. She is a dreadful woman. No, she was thrown out of the Gestapo for cruelty. Yeah, but she's got a good job now. She kick-starts jumbo jets at Chicago Airport. Do you ever notice the first thing you see when you get to the airport is terminal? It's the first word you see, isn't it? Yes. Because some people don't like flying. Some people don't like flying. I love flying. It's plummeting. I don't like plummeting. That was it, Mum. Have you got another question? Cost you $1. I mean, £1. I was afraid of everybody, but especially John Nathan Turner. He really frightened me. Turning the show down like that. Yes, sir. Yes, it's very. I started off as a Yeti with Fraser. That's when I first met one of my best mates, Fraser Hines, and Douglas Camfield, the director, who was one of my best friends, and he's the chap that made me. He gave me, you know. See, some actors are vain. I don't care. And that's a nice drink. I just went to the bar just now. I said to the barman, "Get me a double." He left the bar and came out with a guy that looked exactly like me. Because my dad was a drinker. Dad's so bad, he had to have his toes amputated. So he just stand closer to the bar. No! Yeah, I was born in Salisbury. Anybody been to Salisbury? Lovely place. Lovely. Oh, nobody. Right, well, I'll tell you, it's a lovely place. And, yeah. There was a question. Where was that question? Someone had their hand up. Yes, sir.
John, you say for Salisbury, you haven't lost your Salisbury accent, although you live in America.
Oh, don't you think? Do you think I sound Salisbury now? Oh, all right, fine, I got rid of that. No, because you've got to walk. No, God, you've got to walk around like a parrot on your shoulder and say, "Where's the black spot there?" And I did. Does it sound Wiltshire? I wouldn't have thought so. Oh, well, we've all got across to that. No, that's that. Any questions about Hollywood? Let me tell you what a dump it really is. No. Do you know it's so cold in Chicago yesterday? I heard that flashes were jumping out in front of women and describing themselves. That is cold. I went to a barber's in Hollywood just before I came, but I had to go on the glue thing. Took the makeup. Yeah, and I went in and I said, "How much do you charge for a shave?" You know. He said, "How much do you charge for a shave?" He said, $5. I said, "How much for a haircut?" He said, $45. I saw it, shaved my head. I had a busy weekend last weekend. Cleaned out the attic with the wife. Oh, it's dirty, filthy, covered in cobwebs. But she's good to the kids. Any questions, please? I can't see anybody. Yes, sir. No, my father was a war hero. Although, being serious now, my father didn't like me very much. I told you before, my father and mother were in the iron and steel business. My mother used to do the ironing, my father used to do the steeling. And I had a bit of a sad childhood. I was born when I was very young, and I remember I was breastfed. I think that's what did it. I was breastfed. I mean, by my father. It doesn't work. Oh, it just doesn't work. And then when I got to the age of 2, I remember my mother, to this day, she fed me great big chunks of pineapple, I remember. But with the skin on. But it was Douglas Camfield that gave me my first part. And he offered me a big part, and I said, "No, thank you, I've already got one." And no. And Because you've got to talk about sex sometimes, don't you? I mean, I can remember right now my first sexual experience. I can remember it now. I was terrified. I was on my own at the time. Working with John. Terrible. Working with John was a dream. He had a bit of an ego, but he never let it fall over onto us. And you've got to remember, you've seen the shows. There was something magic about the unit times, and I think it's just good luck. I think it just happened that none of us had an ego. I mean, Nick Courtney was a brilliant brigadier, and although I felt very self-conscious when I first joined acting, because I hadn't had any acting experience or been to the theatre, and it was ironic, but one of the most famous actors in the whole world was my next-door neighbour, when I was kind of famous and he wasn't. And I remember he came out to me one day and said, I've just seen one of your shows in Doctor Who, and I love the way you act, you see, meaning, because I was quite quiet. If you think about it, I never tried to grab the limelight, because if you're fifth on the cast list, it's not your right. John was the star, Katie was the second, Roger was the third, and I knew my place, which is why I think I got on. I think I got on well because I just shut my mouth, got on with the work, and never tried to get in front of the camera. And if you don't, if any of you would be actors, if you don't try and get in front of the camera, surely you will end up there because people see you and they kind of push you forward. But Tom, is that the actor? And, but no, Tom was just a different kettle of fish. It wasn't the happiest time of my life because he didn't want Unit in, and quite naturally. He wanted it all himself, and he got it. And Unit had pretty much, I think we've gone full circle by then. Because the first actor that was going to get the part of Benson was actually a karate expert. The trouble is, the first time he saluted, he fucking killed himself. You know, so I stepped in. Do you like the suit? It's quite nice, isn't it? It's cheap as hell. I got 14 of these at home. I actually hate the suit, but I love being measured. Yes, young man, you're a bright young person, you are. Just speak a bit louder, because you have to.
What were your funniest moments?
My funniest moment was right then, when you asked me that. I'll tell you what my funniest moment was. No, it wasn't. It was my most horrifying moment, when they rigged the pin on my nappy in Time Monster. And John Pertwee had told the dress of the wardrobe chapter so that it would fall off. Now, I did have a pair of underpants on underneath. But I stood up at that scene. If you actually watch it when you go home, I was so embarrassed. I mean, you know, actors aren't always what we appear. You know, we get nerves, and you know, I mean, but that was my most embarrassing moment. But there was too many happy moments really to tell you, because they were all happy. You know, how many people get the chance of being in Doctor Who with John Pertwee? And we did what, roughly 5 years. I enjoyed the Demons and those. Then I think the Three Doctors. Then maybe the Green Death and Terror of the Zygons.